So today we start our first class of geomorphology. This is the introductory class. Now, geomorphology means the uh, features which we observed in our surroundings. Now, this is an important part of geology. Whenever people are studying geology, they must have study geomorphology so that they can better understand. They can um, understand in the rock record what are the processes going on to form those kinds of sedimentary rocks. Now, whenever geology is concerned, the biggest or the major contributions of geology to science is mainly three aspects. The first is the concept of deep time, uh, the vast enormous time concept. Second is the concept of plate tectonics, that is not all the continental position, or that is not all the outermost solid uh, plates or solid parts of the earth are fixed in its position. They are moving throughout time. They are moving through time. Sometimes they form a major supercontinent, and sometimes they are separated into several numerous smaller fragments. And the third, and in my opinion, the most important contributions of geology to science is the evolution of life. And why I am saying that it is important, in my opinion, it is most important because uh, if you look after the journey of organic beings throughout the history of life, you can see that through time the organic bodies they changed from time to time, and we know that evolution is unidirectional. So once a organism got lost, they never came back. Now when someone going very deep to this organic world evolution, they can also find that during this uh, entire 4.6 billion years time span of earth history, along with the uh, change of organic world, the earth surface or subsurface condition is also changing. What I try to say that uh, it is not only the evolution of organism happened throughout the 4.7 billion years time, but also along with the evolution of organism, evolution of earth also happened. So many processes which are not occurred anciently, they are now started to occur with time. Their intensity, their magnitude may be changed through time, and depending on that, the surface or subsurface features, the subspace or subsurface morphologies, the surface or subsurface landforms, they are also modified with time. That means evolution happened of the entire earth with evolution of life, with evolution or changeover of the atmosphere. That means as a whole, not only the biotic component of the earth but also the abiotic components of the earth, they are also changing through time. That is why um, I call that evolution is the major contribution of geology to science. You go or you are trying to learn geomorphology, the first thing came into your mind, that is the landscape, that is changeover on your surrounding things. the term landscape is basically come from a Dutch word. The word is landschap. Basically, this word is used by the painters to draw the pictures of the countryside. And in many movies or in many cartoons, you see that the European countryside, whenever you saw a drawing or a painting, you observe that the European countryside, the countrysides are composed of lots of ups and downs, lots of hillocks, lots of rivers. So the countryside is not flat. There are many ups and downs. So to demarcate this kind of superficial uh, feature, people use the term for those paintings as landscape. Now, in science, scientists or geologists taken that term from the Dutch painting world, and they used the term as landscape to demarcate the earth's surface that we observe at one time from one place. And this earth surface may consist of various features, various, as I already told you, various rivers, various magnitude of rivers, various flatlands, desert, hillocks, oceans. So depending on those features, the processes occurring in those areas also change. Or you may say otherwise, that depending on various processes occurring in different areas of the earth, different landscape, different landforms are formed in different areas. Now, for a geologist, their duty is firstly to draw and describe these landforms or these landscapes, these ups and downs. And after describing and drawing of this landscape, they should try to depict the processes that is responsible for formation of the that landscape, only to identify the process. And next step is the how that how that natural agent or how that geological agent is forming that particular landscape. Suppose a dune in a desert area. So first you have to draw a dune, you have to describe a dune, that it's a meter scale long, meter scale high, and few tens of meter scale wide. Sand features occur in an arid environment. It is formed by some kind of aeolian activity. And next is the landscape, how the landscape form. That is, whenever wind move in a unidirectional way, they form some kind of undulatory topography, which are known as dunes. HL meter scale in height and few tens of meter scale in width. So this is the way how geologists or scientists um, they study the landscape of a area. Now, uh, the interesting part uh, of this studying geomorphology is that uh, not only we have to study or we have to describe the features of our surroundings, but also, as I already told you, that art is also changing through time. So we have to describe how those land features, how those landscapes, how those landforms, they are changing through time. Okay, so that means evolution of landforms, not only we are restricted in these, that is simple describing, drawing, identifying the process and how the features formed. Now, not only we have to restrict ourselves to these three processes, but also we have to observe, and we have to interpret that how these features was in an ancient environment, and how these features can modify through time by observing the present day phenomena. That is the simple following the law of uniformitism. So that is the main uh, work, that is the main motto of a geomorphologist. Study of the landforms, their scientific study is known as geomorphology. Now the term geomorphology uh, is derived from two Greek words, uh, that is, one is geo, sorry, two mean, not it's three Greek words. The first one is geo, which means earth. The second one is morphe, which means form, and the third one is logos, which means study. So if we club them, all these words, that means it is the scientific study of Earth's landforms. Okay. The scientific approach of study of Earth landforms, how they occur, how they originate, how they evolve, how they change through time. So it basically a composite science where we study the landforms. And in geomorphology, this kind of study is practiced for several branches. This geomorphological study is also done in physical geography. This kind of study is done in geology. This kind of study is done in geodesy, in engineering, in archaeology, as well as geotechnical engineering. Now, if I give you a simple example, uh, if you closely observe the any building construction of a flatland and a hilly terrain, the first thing you will notice that in hilly terrain, the pillars over which the building or the houses are constructed, they are not equal in size, and for each and every um, building construction in an hilly terrain, there must be some kinds of pillars, and they have to taken into consideration the slope of the hills. So, whereas in case of flatlands, people may or may not form pillars for the construction of any house, for the construction of any building. So you must see that the local geomorphology, local landform setting, uh, affecting directly for construction of a building. So whenever people try to construct any structure, they must have uh, taken into account the geomorphology or the landforms. Now, the application of geomorphic knowledge, understanding of geomorphology in the resolution of engineering, planning, and environmental or research management problems. These kinds of geomorphological study is important for engineering construction, for planning, that is the land use planning, for plantation, for building construction, for dam construction, and environmental or resource management. This For these things, geomorphological study is very important. For social relevance of geomorphology and the study of interaction between geomorphology and human activity. Uh, for this, I can give you an example. If you look at the behavior or the cultural behavior of two different areas people, suppose you are taking into consideration the peoples of a flatland, the peoples of hilly terrain, and the peoples of a desert. You can readily observe a huge, a vast cultural difference, social, uh, behavioral difference between these three different types of peoples. And this cultural, social, behavioral difference may occur, or there is some effect for the this type of cultural difference is due to the different geomorphological setup. Okay, so due to the different geomorphology, the cultural behavior, that means the interactions of peoples with each other and along with the environment, is also become different for different geomorphological setting. Now, what are the processes work behind the landforms? Who are responsible for formation of different kinds of geomorphological features? If we try to define geomorphic processes, that is the all kinds of physical chemical interactions as well as the biological interactions happened between the earth's surface and the natural forces on the superficial as well as subsurfacial conditions. So all kinds of physical, chemical and biological interactions with their surroundings are responsible for formation of different kinds of landscapes, different kinds of land features. The process responsible for the formation and alteration of the earth's surfaces is known as the geomorphic processes. The processes are determined by the natural environmental variables such as geology, that means the rock, what different types of rocks are found in those areas, the climate, vegetation cover, as well as the altitude, that means how much height in the place occurred above the base level of erosion or above mean sea level, and also the human interference, that is how much human activity is there. So depending on along with the natural variables, all these factors are also responsibles, or in other words you can say all these factors are responsible for variation of the natural environmental condition, and depending on those natural environmental condition, the intensity as well as the strength of the natural agents, they will also vary from place to place. Suppose you, if you take the example of river Ganges, same river Ganges is flowing in the Himalayan terrains, as well as same river Ganges is flowing in the Sundarban areas, but in those areas, because of the uh, different variables, different um, topographical variables, and those topographical variables is due to different tectonic setup, uh, depending on that climate, rock types, human interference are also changing. So depending on those things, the behavior of the same river, that means their intensity and magnitude of the same river Ganges, is different compared to the Himalayan terrain and the Sundarban areas. In Himalayan terrain, the strength or energy condition is river Ganges is much higher. So in those areas, uh, we found mainly erosional activity of river Ganges, whereas the energy condition of river Ganges in the Sundarban areas is very low. So mainly in these areas deposition is occur, erosion is almost negligible. So depending on those factors, my environmental condition is varied, and along with that the natural uh, agents also interact with its surroundings differently, and due to that same natural agent um, will form different kinds of or different types of land features. in different areas at the same time. Now, if we try to define the geomorphic processes in scientific language, Dr. W.D. Thornberry in 1968 first tried to describe the geomorphic processes, that is, those physical and chemical changes which affect a modification of the Earth's surgical form. That means the Earth's superficial form. Now, one thing is that Dr. Thornberry, he somehow missed the effect of biological activities. Rather, he will only concentrating on the physical and chemical changes. But you know that along with the physical and chemical changes, biological entities, they also play a major role in shaping the pre-existing uh, landforms, the pre-existing land covers. So, keeping in mind, Dr. Jim Gardner, he modified the definition of geomorphic processes in 1979, and he defined it a process by which the Earth's landforms are changed or maintained. So here process includes all the physical, chemical and biological processes which are responsible for changing or maintaining the same feature over time of the Earth's landforms, that is known as geomorphological processes. Now, who are the agents of these geomorphic processes? Firstly, it's wind, that is air, and whenever wind activity is much intense in an area, we call those environment as aeolian environment. And generally, where the wind activity is very high, those areas suffers a prolonged temperature difference between day and night and between months, that is between seasons. So due to this huge temperature variation, those areas are very much affected by intense wind activity, and in most cases those areas are very dry in condition because of less humidity, because of less amount of water vapor in the atmosphere. Wind activity is much intense in those areas, and that is why most of the or a major portion of the aeolian environments are very much dry, are very much arid. Second agent is the glacier and ice. Now, the first thing, whenever we heard the term glacier or ice, the first thing came into our mind is the polar areas, that is the Arctic and Antarctic poles. Now, we know that those poles are always throughout the entire year, they are covered with the ice mass or glaciers. Now, along with these polar areas, um, the continental high hill peaks, such as the uh, peaks of Himalayas, high altitude hillocks, they are also covered with the ice and glaciers. So all those areas where glacial activity is found, it is not only the polar areas but also the high hill peaks of the Himalayas, of the Andes, of the Alps, and those areas are known as glacial environment. And lastly, the water, the most commonly found natural agent in our surroundings, mostly or firstly, whenever we heard the term water dominated area, the first thing came into our mind is a river or stream. So that is why those environments where where river activity is prolonged or river activity is much intense, those areas are known as fluvial element. But water in nature is found in more areas or in more environments apart from a river. Water can be found in ponds, water can be found in lakes, water can be found in oceans also. So depending on that, those areas are known as lake environment and marine environment. Okay. But why and those different areas, that means the same water in different environmental setup, that means in river, in lake and in oceans, different environmental setup, different energy conditions, the same water can form different uh, geomorphic features. So that is why I previously told you that the same geological or same natural agents can form different types of geomorphic feature in different areas depending on the environmental setup, depending on the energy condition of that natural agent. Now, the process includes geomorphic process includes three types of activity. Firstly, it is the erosion, where the previous exposed landforms or previously exposed rocks, they are firstly broken down, that is weathering upper, and then this broken material are eroded from its original place. They are carried out by some natural agents, that is transportation occur, and at suitable condition where the natural agent is not able to carry those materials further down current, then they will deposit those things in a depressed area that we call basin. So three types of activities done by the geomorphic processes, and all those processes more or less done, all those processes done these three processes but in different amount. Such as for glaciers, erosion is the main process. It erodes very high in amount, but transportation of a glacier is very low. Deposition is also high. For wind, erosion is very less, but its transportation is very high, and deposition is also high. But for river, all the threes are happen almost uh, varied in amount depending on the energy condition in different areas, different parts of the river. In the young stage of the river, erosion is dominant, then deposition or transportation. In the middle stage, erosion becomes low, transportation is there along with the deposition, and in the mature stage, that is the old stage of the river, erosion is almost negligible and mainly deposition happened. The products of geomorphic processes, if we consider the processes as erosion, so due to erosion, the products are the erosional landform features. uh, Transportation happen then, and whenever deposition occur, the products are the depositional landforms. Now here are some pictures of those natural agents, and those natural agents form different landforms in different areas. In first case, the water in the form of a river, it will form a meandering river condition, and it will form a sinusoidal channel with floodplains, natural levees. In the second case, in wind activity in a dry condition in a desert area, that will form different kinds of meter scale high dunes of sands or seals. In the third picture, glacial activities found in the high altitude hillocks. The ice and snow, they capped the hill peaks, and whenever they move downstream due to the action of gravity, they will erode the rock walls in very high proportion. And lastly, the water activity found in the oceans, found in marine condition, that is a wave activity. So due to this wave activity, also different kinds of landforms are found in our surface. But this activity of water, and this activity of water is not same, although the agent is same, but due to the different condition, energy condition, due to different setup, different forces acting in these two processes, the landforms differ. Now, if we try to divide the geomorphic processes, whether they are formed and occur in Earth, or whether there's factors or these uh, processes coming outside the Earth, then we can divide them into two groups. The first group is the terrestrial processes. That means these processes originate and occur in the Earth, and the second process is the extraterrestrial processes. That is, these processes originate outside the earth, and in due time they will impact the earth's surface features. Now, terrestrial processes, that means the earth bound processes, they are of also two types: exogenetic processes and endogenetic processes. As the name suggests, exogenetic processes means that those processes formed and or originate on the superficial condition, that is known as the weathering, erosion or degradation, transportation, deposition, and mass movement. Now, weathering is of three types we all know previously, that is physical weathering, chemical weathering, and biological weathering. Here its term came into our scenario, that is known as denudation. I'll come in later about this term. The endogenetic processes, as the name suggests, endo means inside the earth. So the uh, processes that occur inside the earth, that is subsurface processes, and in this case it is mostly the tectonic processes in high pressure temperature condition processes inside the earth. These processes also affect the superficial features of the earth, such as the faulting and folding, volcanism, earthquake, diastrophism, and metamorphism. So all these endogenetic processes may also affect the superficial landforms. Coming to the extraterrestrial processes, the famous example is the meteorite impact. So, an outer Earth celestial body, when the one piece of the celestial body detached from the original body, and due to the attracts gravitational force, when it comes close to the earth and impact on the earth's surface, then some large crater like features, circular to elliptical in nature, they are found to form on the earth's surface. Now these kinds of uh, impact marks of the extraterrestrial celestial bodies, uh, they are not originate in earth, inside the earth, or surface of the earth, but the factors which is responsible for formation of those kinds of impact craters, meteorite impact craters, that factor is coming outside the earth. That is why this is known as extraterrestrial processes. Although um, in most cases, whenever a celestial body coming close to the earth, in most cases, whenever they um, incorporate to the earth's atmospheric field, in most cases they are burnt out, and very few extraterrestrial bodies basically impact the earth's surface. So impact of extraterrestrial bodies on on earth's surface, although it is rare, but it has some kind contribution on making some uh, landforms, or making some land features which is particularly formed due to this kind of meteorite or this kind of extraterrestrial bodies impact on the earth surface. Here again, the exogenetic and endogenetic processes within the terrestrial processes. Endogenetic means if we consider this blue ball as our Earth, then this is the surface condition. All the processes occurring in subsurface or above the surface, those are known as exogenetic processes. And all the processes occur inside the Earth, those are known as endogenetic processes. The difference between exogenetic and endogenetic processes, um, endogenetic processes occur interior of the earth, whereas exogenetic occur at the surface of the earth. Endogenetic processes causes sudden or rapid movements, whereas exogenetic processes are very slow. These are the examples of these two processes. Now, types of exogenetic or exogenous processes: weathering, erosion and degradation, transportation, deposition, and mass movement. Now, all these kinds of exogenous processes, they are mainly related due to different uh, falling intensity of sunlight to the Earth's surface. So sunlight, whenever they fall in different intensity on the Earth's surface, depending on that, the local pressure temperature condition of the atmosphere that will vary, and depending on that, some areas suffer more intense um, wind movement, some areas suffer more intense rainfall, some areas suffer more intense heating and cooling during the entire daytime. Some areas suffer frost activity. So, due to the variation of uh, falling sunlight, uh, our surfacial processes will also vary in intensity in different areas of the Earth's surface, and depending on that, all the uh, processes, that means the pressure temperature condition of the atmosphere, the rainfall, the wind movement, they will also vary from place to place, and due to that, different areas suffer different uh, rates or different magnitude of these exogenous processes. Now, when an area suffer different types of exogenous processes, and due to the suffering of different exogenous processes, mainly the weathering, erosion and transportation, the pre-existing landform gradually broken down, and whenever the broken fragments, broken pieces of rocks are carried away from its original source, original in situ position to elsewhere and deposited, then the pre-existing landform with time gradually becomes lower and lower, that is gradually wearing away. So the height of a pre-existing feature, or the length or the width of a pre-existing landform, due to the wearing processes, due to the weathering and erosion processes through time, gradually their size becomes lower and lower, and this lowering down of any landform or lowering down of any landmass or feature is known as denudation. So if we try to summarize what is denudation, denudation is the combined effect of weathering, erosion and transportation. So firstly, the pre-existing landform becomes fragmented, that is weathering. Then it is uh, those fragmented materials are carried away by the natural agents, that is erosion and transportation. So due to these three processes, the pre-existing landforms become gradually lower and lower in size, which is known as denudation. And mo- due to denudation, more and more fresh rocks, more and more um inside portion of the features, inside portion of the landforms are freshly exposed. The Earth's surface is also the site where many living things dwells, that is gases, liquids and solids and many biological entities. Now, due to the difference in variation of these geomorphic processes, these things are also changing with time. And the most favorite or the most easily observed of these processes are the three cycles which are continuously changing in nature. That is, first one is the water cycle or hydrological cycle, second is the rock cycle, and the third one is the biogeochemical cycle. These three cycles are very crucial to understanding the landform evolution, because um, depending on these three cycles, the chemical elements that are continuously changing from one form to other, that is continuously changing from one form to other through the biotic and abiotic bodies. And due to that, the biological entities as well as the landforms are continuously changing. Okay, so that is why these three cycles have immense importance in depicting the landform. The first cycle is the water cycle or hydrological cycle. It is known to you that water change. So due to this exchange of energy, sometimes energy is taken into the water molecule and sometimes energy is released from the water molecule. We may found different um, forms of H2O in different areas, and you can see that due to this intaking and releasing of solar energy, the processes are different in different areas. So the surfacial processes are changed in different areas. So in some areas, ice or glacial activity is dominant, such as the hilltops. In flatlands, fluvial activity is dominant. In coastal areas, marine activity is dominant. So the surfacial processes are also varying, and along with the surfacial processes, the chemical elements are also transferring from one form to another. So whenever water moves from the hilly terrains, that will erode the minerals, and minerals are disintegrated into several chemical elements. Some are dissolved, some are going to the ionic stages, and those ionic forms, they are taken by plants or taken by many water dwelling animals. That water dwelling animals or plants are again taken by higher order organisms. So in this way, the elements are also changing its form from one form to another and circulating in the environment. And in this case, that uh, elemental change in environment is occur or is guided by the exchange of energy by the water molecule. Similarly, we all aware of the cyclical process of the so James Hutton proposed this mutual inter relationship of different kinds of rocks which are changing in its types, which are changing in its form due to different surface and subsurface processes. And obviously, due to this changeover, different elements, they are going from one form to another form. And during their journey, sometimes they are also taken by the biotic bodies. After the death of those biotic bodies, they are again mixed. They are again re-entered into the abiotic world and going into the rock record. The third cycle is the biochemical cycle. As I already told in the previous two slides, that in ecology or in earth science, in natural science rather, the biochemical cycle uh, is the cycle uh, in which the substances or the chemical elements uh, moves through biotic or abiotic components of the earth, such as the carbon cycle. Carbon is moving through the abiotic and biotic bodies in nature. The famous example is nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen is taken during the photosynthesis by the plants. So due to photosynthesis, it will grow, it produce some fruits. These fruits are taken by some animals, and after their death, when these animals are um, decomposed by the decomposing bacteria or decomposing organisms, then those elements are again mixed with the abiotic rocks or with the abiotic soils. So the simple chemical element nitrogen can move from the abiotic soils or rocks to the biotic plants or animal bodies in different forms. So this type of chemical elements, they are also cyclically changed from one form to another. Similarly, oxygen is also moving from one form to another, and all these chemical elements cycle is basically um, what or is basically running due to the different superficial processes, different processes done by wind, different superficial process done by water, different superficial process done by glacier. Uh, Due to their activity, the elements, the chemical elements released from one form and goes to another form, and that is why the organic world are also able to intake those chemical elements, and after their use they are again returned back in the abiotic world. So for this, geomorphologic evolution or morphological changeover of any landform or morphological changeover of any land surface has huge importance, although we may not recognize or we may not appreciate this. But the changeover of landform due to the natural agents has huge importance in biological survival of different kinds of plants and animals. And due to the superficial different superficial process, due to the different geomorphological processes, the biochemical cycle is highly active. That is why uh, plants can photosynthesis, plants can get their nutrients from the abiotic world. Animals can get their nutrients from plants, and ultimately after their death they are again mixed up in the abiotic world. So all those things, they are continuously moving in a cyclic processes, and it simply happens due to the geomorphologic processes happened inside as well as on the earth surface. Their intensity may be different in different parts of the earth, but they will always happen. We may or may not appreciate their effect in our human time span. That means we may or may not observe their effect in our human time span, but they will um, occur in a continuous way. They are never stopped. So that's all. That's a brief introduction of geomorphology, why geomorphology is important to us. That's a brief introduction. Hope you will understand. Thank you.